In today's economy, saving money has never been more important. With housing costs continuing to soar, it's becoming more and more difficult for people to find homes. Inflation rates are on the rise, and so is my concern about the value of our hard-earned cash. Meet Topaz, Senior Manager of the Strategic Investment Department from the IPC. She won't actually teach you how to be smart with money. She's here to empty your bank accounts, cause oh my goodness. Topaz and Nummi is the newest 5-star Hunt Fire character, and oh boy, there's a lot to talk about. We'll go over how she works before looking at her best synergies and teams. Timestamps are available, so feel free to skip ahead to what you're looking for. Topaz's playstyle revolves around Nummi, who gets summoned at the start of battle. Nummi has 80 speed, and he'll deal follow-up attack damage on an enemy with Proof of Debt. Whenever enemies with Proof of Debt receive a follow-up attack from allies other than Nummi himself, his actions advance forward by 50%. Good news, Nummi can still take action even if Topaz is crowd controlled, but he disappears once Topaz falls. Her basic attack deals damage to a single enemy, but thanks to her A2, it's considered a follow-up attack, so you do want to level it. Her skill applies the Proof of Debt status on enemies, increasing the damage they take from follow-up attacks by 50% at level 10. Note that this status can only be applied to one target, and if no enemies have it, it'll be applied to a random enemy. Additionally, Nummi will deal equivalent damage to that of her talent to the Proof of Debt target on use of her skill. This attack is also considered a follow-up attack. Topaz has a 130 cost ultimate, and it's an enhanced ability that puts Nummi in the Windfall Bonanza state. He also gets an increase to his damage multiplier by 150% and crit damage by 25% at level 10. When enemies with Proof of Debt are hit with a basic attack, skill, or ultimate, Nummi's action will also advance forward by 50%. Once Nummi uses 2 attacks, he'll exit the Windfall Bonanza state. Activating her technique will cause her to regen 60 energy after Nummi's first attack in battle, and this is nice because it lets you get her ult right off the bat. In summary, Topaz isn't your traditional hyper carry. While you can run her in a team like this, and she'll do really well, she excels in teams where there's a second damage dealer. There's so much value to be gained for follow-up attackers with their huge vulnerability debuff in Proof of Debt, so you really want to capitalize on it. She does fairly high single target damage, and she can go even further with teammates that can help advance Nummi. Topaz can be very skill point friendly, and in teams where you have 2 damage dealers that use skills, you want to use a skill point neutral rotation. All you have to do is alternate between her skills and basics, and without any other source of energy regen, she'll get a 4-turn alt rotation. Okay, let's get into team building. Since Topaz and Nummi are single target oriented, teammates that help with AoE damage are highly welcome. I've put together a list of all follow-up attack sources in the game just so we can go over this synergy. I've also taken into account how good they make use of supports together, so keep that in mind. Let's begin with her most hyped partner. Clara's at the top of this list for kit synergy, but I will point out some flaws. These won't impact the rankings here in any way, but the strength of their synergy won't completely determine how strong their teams will be. Clara is best known for her counterattacks and enabling the ultimate Robo-Pig synergy. Thanks to her Enhance Ult being a blast type attack, she can actually hit the Proof of Debt target with follow-up attacks quite regularly. This will not only increase Clara's damage, but she'll also be advancing Nummi forward a lot. Clara and Topaz are both skill point friendly as well, making the rest of the team slots pretty flexible. Clara also takes care of AoE, and we all know how much damage she dishes out. So wouldn't this be a match made in heaven? Yes, it would, but we have to take one important factor into account. Clara and Topaz don't share the same element, and to get the most out of this duo, you'd want to fight enemies with both physical and fire weakness. Now, the synergy doesn't change, just the damage output would. I think off the top of my head, only the IPC grunts and Bronya have both fire and physical weakness, so you can see it's pretty scarce. That being said, you can still brute force your way through pretty easily even if enemies only have one element or the other. As for teams, you'd want to run a Harmony here with Asta being the best option since she can buff all your allies with her attack and speed bonuses. She also has some fire damage bonus from her A4 trace, and if you want to go the extra mile, you can equip Planetary Rendezvous for more. Asta is going to be common in a lot of teams here since she's so great with Topaz and Nummi, and even though the speed buffs don't benefit Clara as much as other characters, they'll still help her. If you want to run an alternative, Yukong and especially Tingyun can be great. Tingyun will fuel a lot more Clara ults, which means a lot more Nummi action advances. For solo sustain, Lynx will actually be the best option for max damage, since she can apply survival response onto Clara. This will greatly increase the chance that she gets attacked, which means she'll get more counters and damage. Of course, you can run any sustain here. Fu Xuan and Luocha would be best for survivability, but in this case, Lynx happens to be particularly good. Next up, we have Jing Yuan, and while Lightning Lord doesn't take actions as frequently, Proof of Debt will greatly increase his damage output. Lightning Lord makes up the majority of his damage, and having enemies with a 50% increased damage taken is just what he needs. He'll still help Nami advance forward a bit, and he also fulfills the AoE requirement in Topaz teams. Again, just like Clara, there's a bit of a downside in that he's not the same element as Topaz, but again, because their synergy is so good, they'll work quite well together even if the enemy only has one of their weaknesses. Asta will be a great support, though Tingyun's pretty competitive as well, just like with Clara. Even though Tingyun only buffs one ally at a time, she just synergizes so well with Jing Yuan, and it's worth maximizing Lightning Lord's stacks and damage. The increased chance to be attacked from Lynx won't see value in this team, so Fu Xuan would be the best pick, or Luocha if you need the skill points. Again, Bailu, Natasha, Gepard all work. Although I've only put Himiko in the good category in terms of synergy, she's likely Topaz's best partner for now in most practical fights just because she's fire. Most importantly though, they do work well together, and Himiko supplies an ample amount of AoE as well as follow-up attacks from her talent. Unlike Clara and Jing Yuan though, her damage profile is more balanced, so while she will make use of Topaz's Proof of Debt, it won't be as significant of an increase. Topaz also offsets one of Himiko's biggest weaknesses in that she has low single target damage, so they've really got each other covered. This time Asta's a no-brainer, and you really want to put her on Planetary Rendezvous. Just to put into perspective what Asta brings to the team at Trace level 10 and an S5 Planetary, it's 70% attack from her talent, 50 speed on her ult, and 42% fire damage bonus, which is more than a fire damage orb. This is so overloaded, and again, in most practical scenarios where we can only match fire weakness, this will be her best team, mono fire. Just some extra synergy here, there's so much fire break potential between the three of them, causing Himiko to do more follow-up attacks and advance Nami forward a lot more. There's just so much going on, and the team itself feels so good to play. If you have them, I'd highly recommend you try this out. March is kind of an interesting one, since we're not really looking at her being a second damage dealer, but rather as a solo sustain that can provide some value. It's tough to do, but if you run her and another follow-up attack DPS, you can potentially give Nami an insane amount of actions. I do think the pairing's a bit overrated though, and while I can see it working, it's like trying to force synergy just because it's there. March's follow-up attacks are single target, which is great if the enemy with Proof of Debt hits multiple times, but it's not going to be as consistent as you'd think. You gotta ask yourself, why are you bringing March? Okay, she has multiple follow-up attacks that can advance Nami forward, though let's be real, they're not going to do any damage, so they won't benefit from Proof of Debt. What else? She can possibly solo sustain, and that's kinda it. From a value perspective, her role consolidation sounds neat, but she does neither of the things well. Not to mention with March, you'll need to use a lot more skill points to keep everyone alive. But yeah, point being, March can work, she's just not as crazy as you'd expect. The rest of these are pretty straightforward, and even though they have follow-up attacks, they're either infrequent and unreliable, or the characters themselves don't have much synergy with Topaz. Blade has quite the AoE damage potential, especially with his follow-up attack, but there are some issues here. He doesn't get his follow-up attack that frequently, and he really wants Bronya to help him get ramped up. Aside from that, him being primarily HP scaling won't let you make the most out of some of Topaz's best supports, so you'd be losing out on potential damage by bringing him. Same story with Herta, though she is attack scaling and you could trigger her follow-up attacks reliably, she herself would prefer to be in her own hypercarry comps. The Ys here are kind of a meme, but I thought I'd go over them anyway. Kafka has a follow-up attack on her talent, but as a dot damage dealer, it's going to hit like a wet noodle, and also it's single target. She also doesn't bring much else for Topaz, so they're not really great together. Yanqing's got this problem where he's single target, and his talent doesn't even have a 100% chance to proc his follow-up attack. I think it's around 60%, and do you really want to play them together on a team? I put Qingqi in here thanks to her E4, which does count as a follow-up attack, but it is a gamble fest, and while you could get it somewhat frequently, this Gremlin's gonna crash your skill point economy and you're gonna do no damage. Bronya's E4 is kind of interesting, but we're talking Leviathan territory here. In theory, you use Bronya's skill to target Topaz, advancing her forward. You can then basic on Topaz, which counts as a follow-up attack to advance Nami forward by 50%, then if the enemy is wind weak, Bronya's E4 procs to advance Nami forward by 100% total, so he takes action. Sounds good, but in practice this is pretty hard to line up. You'll also get teammates basic attacking at times to proc Bronya's follow-up attack, and it's just all over the place. I don't have an E4 Bronya to test this out, so if you do and you're pulling for Topaz, let me know how it is. To summarize, the Mono Fire comp is the team I'd recommend the most, with Clara and Jingyuan following close behind. All three of these are super solid and competitive with many of the most popular endgame teams already. Topaz is like a growth stock. Her value should increase at an above average rate compared to other damage dealers, and there's a lot more potential for her teams in the future. Not just that, if we do get a tailor-made fire damage or follow-up attack set, her value will skyrocket. Right now though, she's already got some well-established teams, so I'd say she's a profitable and high-yield investment. If you are pulling for her, I wish you the best of luck on her banner. Do consider dropping a like and subscribing if you enjoyed the video, I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and I will see you next time.